So a good afternoon and a warm welcome to the webinar East Meets West, presented by the Brussels-based non-for-profit Europe-Asia Center. My name is Matic Gajšek. I'm the director for Europe at the center, and I'm truly honored to welcome to such an esteemed panel of excellencies, experts, and this special time also the Olympic laureates that have joined today's discussion, diving deeper into the topic of Olympic values of excellence, respect, and friendship. The power of Olympic Games for promoting people-to-people exchanges and mobilizing climate action. Sports diplomacy is a new term that describes a centuries-old practice, the unique power of sports to bring people, nations, and communities closer together with a shared love of physical pursuit. Through sports diplomacy, though sports diplomacy is not new, the power of sports has never been more important for our current century, both for strengthening the two fragmented people-to-people dialogue platforms and as well mobilizing societies in pursuit for climate action. It is the Olympic Games that embody a set of values that transcend borders and cultures, from excellence, respect, friendship, that are at the core of the Olympic movement, inspiring individuals, communities worldwide. And in the same spirit of inclusivity, the Special Olympics promote acceptance, understanding, and unity for individuals with disabilities, demonstrating the power of sports for fostering inclusion and diversity. So as we anticipate the beginning of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, we are, however, faced with a cruel image of the world plagued by conflict, war, rhetoric, and division. And the global community requires a counter-narrative, one built on belief that through sustained dialogue and cooperation, important progress can be made to empower those most on the margins and to make sure that no individual or country in that respect is left behind in the global fight against the climate change. This approach can usher in an era of inclusive development that celebrates solidarity, unity, mutual understanding, characterized all by the shared commitment of stakeholders towards the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So without further ado, it's my true honor to invite the co-chair of Europe-Asia Center, His Excellency Mr. Erik Solheim, the former UN Deputy Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Environmental Program. Apart from his big advocacy role as for climate, Excellency Solheim is also a great fan of sports, and even more importantly, advocate of green sports and the incredible success of some of the smaller world countries, as well as his native Norway, that has become some of the global sports forces.
One unknown fact about my home country, Norway, is that we are a superpower in sports. Okay, I mean, of course, China and the United States will get more gold medals in Paris than we will. But per capita, we are the big sports nation. We get more gold medals in sports than any other nation in the world per capita. And we are proud of it. Of course, everyone can understand that Norway do well in Winter Olympics. We are the best in both in Korea and in China. That goes without saying because of the climate and nature. But some of the most famous football players, both male and female in the world, are Norwegian. We do very well now in running. We do well in sand volleyball, in handball, even in golf, in tennis. A huge amount of sports where there are no particular Norwegian natural advantage. So it's interesting to speculate why is this? And I believe a core reason is that sport is rooted in society, maybe even more than in most other places. Most Norwegians are members of a sports club. Nearly all young Norwegians will start doing some sports, and they will try to often do many different sports, not specializing at a very young age. And that creates a pool of talent. And of course, some of them then become gold medal winners and stars, while the vast majority are not. But they are also involved in sports in a sense which makes this a popular movement, maybe more so than in many other nations. So the rooting of sports in society is core to the success also at the highest level, with say Haaland being one of the most famous soccer players in the world. But it's also with this huge power of the sport also comes opportunities and responsibilities. Sport can be a massive platform for promoting green lifestyles and the green transformation, which we do need, in two major senses. Of course, sport has a huge advocacy role in society. Some of the sports stars are the most famous people in a society, and they can use this as a tool to speak up, to make the case, to use their social media platforms also to bring up the importance of going green. And sports is a massive movement with thousands upon thousands of people involved, and the practices used in sports will have impact upon others. Of course, we need to make sure that every sports field is fit into nature in the right way. When we do sports, why would we need to bring plastic bottles when we want to drink? Why can't we bring glass bottles or other environment-friendly materials? So sports can be a way to showcase a greener lifestyle and to make the case for a greener society. And of course, no sport event is as important as the Olympics. We're just a few weeks ahead of the Paris Olympics. Beijing Olympics last year was, or the year before last, was a massive opportunity to showcase green technologies and renewable powers. The Olympic Village outside Beijing was something like the 12th biggest country in the world in renewable power. It had been a separate country, and the entire games were fueled by solar and wind power. Now, Paris will be a way of showcasing a lot of green progress also. Hopefully some of the sport, the swimming contest can take place in the Seine. I have been back and forth to Paris for many decades. And of course, in the past, Seine was very polluted. Now it's very clean, hopefully so clean that it can be used even for swimming contests, showcasing the importance of cleaning up the environment. And Paris has been drastically transformed with bike lanes and a huge number of other green development to the benefit of people. Yes, it's controversial. For me, the taxi driver, sometimes I don't like it, but overall, it has transformed Paris into a green city, and Olympic has been kind of focal point also for these positive developments. But when the games start, people will come from all over the world. They will become friends. Yes, they're competitors. Sometimes there are some harsh moments also, but it's a huge opportunity to exchange views, to promote friendships, to bring the world together. And in a time of geopolitical tensions, that's more needed than ever. Sports is one of the most important nation-building tools of any time, maybe the most important. I mean, look, every Norwegian, old or young, male or female, rich or poor, support Norwegians in all sports. I mean, you are Norwegian, 100 meters on the other side of the border, you're a Swede. All the Norwegians support the Norwegian teams, all the Swedes support the Swedish team, and they are one with people living 2,000 kilometers from their home, and they're not one with those living 100 meters from their home because happen to be Swedes. And this replicates itself all over the planet. And many political leaders, of course, also see sports as a nation-building tool. One very fascinating example is Prime Minister Modi of India. India is very weak in sports compared to the size of the nation. Hardly any nation got so few gold medals as India. Yes, they're great in cricket and a few other sports, but overall, India has been weak in sports. But now Prime Minister Modi sees sports as a huge nation-building tool. Whenever an Indian do well somewhere in some sport anywhere in the world, he will send a congratulating message. He will invite them to a session with himself, and it's an enormous opportunity to build the nation of India through sports. So it's a huge nation-building tool, but of course we also need to build a global community to come together and to see competition and cooperation as one, and that's where I think Olympics has a huge role to play. I personally believe we should be very, very, very careful when it comes to boycotts and ostracizing nations. That should be only the ultimate action in very specific cases. I mean, I did grow up during the Vietnam War. It was one of the most ugly and horrible wars in human history. But no one suggested that we should boycott the United States of America just because of the war in Vietnam. You want to bring the nation in and use it as an opportunity for also a political conversation on the sidelines of the event. So let's bring every nation into this, even if we have objectives, even if we have issues with different nations. Let's just bring them into the Olympic family and try to use sports as one of the tools to resolve issues between nations, while at the same time accepting that sport is also a huge nation-building tool.
And obviously, you mentioned going back and forth to Paris several times. Now, this great objective of this swimming competition happening in Seine. Can, you know, as really, I would say, the climate champion and global climate ambassador as you are, with a very strong magnitude, how do you see the role of athletes, let's say individual athletes participating, let's say specifically in water competitions, to really become the ambassadors for water, let's say, or for, you know, yeah, water maybe is really the best example.
I think it's a great example. Of course, without water, there are no swimmers, there are no divers, there are no water polo players, and a huge amount of other. So that makes it possible for them to highlight the importance of clean water to the world. But I think if you look, you will find many other similar examples where people can highlight issues which are close to their heart. But of course, main decisions will have to be made by the International Olympic Committee. In the case of Paris, the Paris city government and France has decided to make this a showcase for many green developments. And for 2 weeks, the entire world focus will be on Paris. So whatever green is happening in Paris will then be showcased to the world in a I think, a very, very positive way, inspiring others to make similar steps. One example is the cleaning up of the Seine. Yes, Europe has done it. China has recently done exactly the same. But in many parts of the world, rivers are still very, 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 very dirty, polluted, and unfriendly to people's health and life.
And maybe just the last question, you've mentioned the Norwegian approach and this, you know, very much holistic perspective of including everyone in diversity of sports from a very young age. And today, obviously, we also are touching a little bit on the topic of sports and inclusivity with guests from the Special Olympics Movement International joining us in the panel. Do you see, you know, as a former UN Deputy Secretary General, where, you know, the UN SDG agenda of inclusion has also been very prominent, how do you also envision on the role of sports and inclusion?
Of course, I will not at all claim that Norway is perfect, but I think very important steps have been taken over the last few decades to include handicapped people for the Special Olympics and many other tools to make it sports more inclusive. Very interestingly, of course, in one way it goes a little bit against LNO sport, because LNO sport is to win. I mean, if you don't want to win, you have nothing to do in soccer. If you don't want to win, you cannot be Usain Bolt. So that is kind of driving this absolute excellence, which only a few individuals can do. But at the same time, sports can be for everyone, and it may be a bigger achievement if you are somewhat handicapped to achieve something than for a fit person to run a bit faster. And every nation should take more effort to bring everyone on board, to see sport as a tool for social inclusion. And I think major steps have been done in this regard in Norway over the last decades. When I was a child, no one really paid any attention to these Special Olympics or competitions for handicapped people. That's changed quite a lot in a positive way.
And of course, one topic of inclusion and giving a stage is probably also on the Olympic level the team of refugees, yeah, the individuals who are not competing due to a range of reasons for any country. So maybe that's also one of the areas that can bring a positive development to global awareness through the power of the Olympic Games to highlight some of the global challenges.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, it shows the power of the Olympics because everyone is focused on that. Every nation is coming together. And then if you highlight, say, the fate of refugees, who cannot easily represent any specific country, that's a great opportunity to make that case stronger on the global arena.
Excellency Solheim, I thank you so much for your profound reflection and for setting the tone to this dialogue. With your reflection on the sports being the level playing field and incredible stories of inclusion and championship that small countries achieve, I'm delighted to introduce our next keynote speaker. In fact, some would say the man behind the success story of Norway becoming one of the top countries with the highest number of Olympic laureates per capita worldwide. Mr. Inge Andersen, who served as the Secretary General of the Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sports between 2004 and 2017, overseeing a total of 11 Olympic events, ranging from Athens in 2004 with Summer Games to Torino, Beijing, Vancouver, all the way to the Youth Olympic Games in Lillehammer in 2016. Mr. Andersen has, throughout his incredibly rich career, led some of the key educational developments, especially in the Norwegian winter sports, from the role of coach to leading the design of specialized education programs that are empowering young talents. He continues sharing his expertise as senior advisor to many teams and organizations, and as a chairman of the board, leads further development of the Norwegian elite upper secondary school. Mr. Andersen, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm then ready to speak about the Norwegian sport model. Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. I will now use some minutes to speak about the Norwegian sport model, and many are asking the question why Norway, as a quite small country, is a superpower nation in sport, not only in winter sport, but also the last 8 to 10 years also in summer sports. And now before Paris, we have really a lot of good medal chances from Norway. So this is the Norwegian sport model. Next. My name is, as we have heard, Inge Andersen. I was the Secretary General of the Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sport in 13 years. In that period, we won 91 Olympic medals, 32 gold medals, and we won 41 Paralympic medals, 14 gold medals. But before that, I have also been national coach in cross-country skiing, both in Norway and also some years in Switzerland. And I had the big pleasure and honor to be a part of the coaching team in front of the Norwegian, in front of the Olympic Games in Lillehammer in 1994. That was a game changer, in fact, in the Norwegian sport. And that was, I would say, the beginning of the modern sport adventure in Norway. I am also now the chairman of the executive board at the Norwegian School of Elite Sports. Next. The big question is, how can a country of only 5.5 million inhabitants become one of the best sporting nations in the world? And nowadays, we have also many really good athletes in track and field, in football, in triathlon, in sailing, in beach volleyball. We have really some of the world best in some of the biggest sports in the world. And for us in Norway, this is something totally new. But I think it's important to say that the training methods that we have built up in the winter sports through many generations, we are now also a little bit sailing on that success also in summer sport. But behind all success, you need to train hard. That is an important platform in all sports success. Next. The platform of the Norwegian sport model is a vision based on, it's a really value-based vision, joy of sport for all. And the values in the Norwegian Olympic Committee and the Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sport, that is health, honesty, community. Next. I'm quite sure that Norway is the only country in the world that has developed a document called Children's Right in Sport. That is our most important value-based document in sport. And that is something that all our federation, from football to handball to beach volleyball and skiing and skating and everything, is standing behind this philosophy that is a sport model that are based on a holistic sport upbringing, and that it should be a place for all the children to take part in sport in Norway. "93% of all children between 6 and 12 years are organized in sport during their childhood here in Norway. And sport and outdoor life are a natural part of Norwegian social life." Next. An important reason why also Norway has developed this performance, not only in winter sport, but also now in summer sport, is I think we are quite in front in the world how we combined, or the youth are combining, elite sport with education. And in the school system where I am the chairman, we have 14 schools around Norway with 200 coaches and 200 trainers, totally 400, that are working with full-time the youth every day between their age of 15 to 18 years old. And this platform is important that all our elite athletes also have a good education. That is a part of the whole holistic thinking in the Norwegian sport model. Next. And I mentioned the name of our sport organization. The full name is the Norwegian Olympic Committee and the Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sport. In Norwegian sport, everyone are equal. All dreams are equal. That is independent of your participating in the Olympic Games or Paralympic Games or Special Olympics. And our elite sport center, Olympiatoppen, and also in our school, the elite sports school, that is world-class athletes take part and are training together, that it's independent of your Paralympic athletes or an Olympic athletes. Next. one of our legends, and it has been into many Olympic Games, and he won gold in downhill skiing in 2018 in Pyeongchang. And when he gave an interview under that Olympic Games in New York Times, Mr. Aksel Lund Svindal he said this in this interview: there is almost no skill or ability you can have that is so good that it allows you to ruin the social qualities of the team. This is really important, because to have good national team, that the best athletes, women and men, are training together, and the power over the social qualities in the team, that is, and also a really, really important platform of the Norwegian success. Next. At the end, this is our big international star at the moment, one of the world's best football players, playing for Manchester City. He is a young guy. He has gone this system from his childhood in the west of Norway, in a small, really small football club. And he has been a part of this Norwegian sport model, where children, they have to have joy, that to combine education and elite sport is important until you are, in fact, an elite athlete. And in our sports model, it should be equal opportunities. It should be no selection when you are 11, 12, 13 years. And it's through what I've now spoken about, an unique model in the world based on this holistic view, and also based in one way on a social democratic system that we have in Norway. So thank you very much for giving me this time. We can't hear you.
Mr. Andersen, thank you so much for introducing us the strong track record and the story of the success that Norway brought to one of the, let's say, the highest peaks in terms of the achievements at the Olympic Games. So it is now my great honor of inviting another global leader from the Special Olympics International, which is equally a member of the International Olympic family and is spearheading one of the most important global missions, which is social inclusion of people with intellectual disabilities. And as mentioned in my opening note, our societies cannot progress towards any of the UN Sustainable Development Goals if we do leave people with intellectual disabilities behind us. So therefore, truly an honor to introduce Mr. David Evangelista, the President and Managing Director of Special Olympics Europe Eurasia. Mr. Evangelista is overseeing the program operations of Special Olympics in total of 58 countries in Western, Central, Eastern Europe, as well as Central Asia. And in his role, he's championing the mission of Special Olympics with using sports, health, education, and leadership to create global inclusion and empowerment for people with intellectual disabilities. Mr. Evangelista, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Matic, and a big thanks to Erik and to the entire Europe-Asia Center. It's indeed an honor for all of us here at Special Olympics and myself, of course, to join such a prestigious panel to discuss really an issue that has become the issue of our times, which is the issue of inclusion. You'll remember many years ago, the theme of social inclusion and the larger theme of inclusive development was often categorized as a romantic theme, one that was often relegated to the last agenda item after long board meetings, something that was often seen as a nice to do, a nice to have. Clearly, over the past few years, most notably embedded in the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the motto of leaving no one behind, but also in the way in which many across the private sector, national and regional governments, and the United Nations have made inclusion a key cornerstone of not only strategy, but also commercial strategies, and more importantly, a shared vision across all sectors to ensure that the margins are able to move to the center, to ensure that we all can benefit from adherence and achievement of the UN SDGs. People with intellectual disabilities regrettably boast of some of the worst statistics in the world. People with intellectual disabilities are often the least employed. They suffer the lowest levels of social protection, namely across the global South. They have some of the lowest access to education and access to health rates, not to mention an entrenched stigmatization and social isolation that was very much brought to the forefront during COVID. I think any of us across the global community who had seen the horrific impact of COVID could see very clearly that those demographics left to the margins were those that suffered the most. And so Special Olympics is a global movement founded by Eunice Kennedy Shriver in 1968, dedicated to the proposition that everyone with an intellectual disability is empowered through sport, that their families are ensured dignity and a sense of belonging. And what better way to do that than through the power of sport, a theme that brings us together here today. Special Olympics is proud to engage the upwards of 5 million athletes across 190 nations. I'm very proud to say that all of my prestigious panelists who I'm joining on this panel, we have active national Special Olympic programs in these nations. And we're very grateful for the ongoing support of the global development community, certainly very grateful for the support to the Europe-Asia Center for giving us this platform. In many ways, Matic, and to all of the audience, people with intellectual disabilities are perhaps the most prolific diplomats within the sport diplomacy area. These are athletes that know discrimination better than most. These are athletes that know the cost of exclusion when it comes to not only the family unit, but to the national economies and to nation building itself. These are athletes who have faced adversity in almost all of their walks of life, and still they line up to the track. They wait for the whistle during for the basketball game to start. They are ready at minute 1 and they're ready at minute 90 of the football pitch. These are athletes that embody the very best of the Olympic spirit: grit, courage, determination, and a commitment to not only be the best, but more importantly, to do their best. And I think in a world so wrought with a cancel culture, a global community so adrift with this ensuing divisiveness, whether it be across economic, political, social lines, I think the world is hungry for examples that work. I think the global community is eager to follow leaders that are compelling, not only in their message, but in their values and in their performance. And I think people with intellectual disabilities, the athletes of Special Olympics, bring forth to the Olympic tradition, as they have for 53 years. I think they bring forth to the United Nations, to national sport federations, to the private sector, and to global philanthropy, an example of a demographic that can achieve victory without victims. To use the words of Mrs. Eunice Kennedy Shriver, they can win without others losing. They can offer the world an example through sport that says that when we come together to do our best on the field of play, we can bring that spirit, we can bring that unity to our homes, to our communities, to our neighborhoods, to our nations. And I say that because through the work of the Special Olympics Global Leadership Coalition for Inclusion, which is a multilateral effort made possible by the Stavros Niarchos Foundation from Athens, Greece, Special Olympics has been empowered to engage national governments around the world to commit domestic financing to ensure that these values offered by athletes with intellectual disabilities are embedded in schools, in sports clubs, in local community centers, through national sport federations, asking their mainstream peers to team up, to play unified with the athletes of Special Olympics, and in doing so, to show the world what real inclusion looks like. In many chambers around the world and think tanks and so on, most would never arrive at the idea that inclusion is indeed a contact sport. And I think all of us on this call would agree that if you want to forge true social inclusion, it takes concerted commitment and action. And any athlete, many of whom we have on this panel, very much esteemed champions, would all agree that to achieve your best, it takes discipline, it takes commitment, but it takes courage. And Special Olympics is proud to have engaged over 21 national governments that have committed real financing to the expansion of inclusive sports for people with and without intellectual disabilities. We're very proud to say that a number of United Nations agencies, including the Population Fund, the High Commission for Refugees, and many more, are signing up to ensure that this coalition not only offers the impact that this demographic has been yearning for centuries, but that it also share with other national governments and regional governments like the European Union, African Union, and so on, an example of the way in which sport diplomacy can take root in countries to benefit the most marginalized, and in doing so can galvanize the larger national community. From Kenya to China to Mongolia to small nations like Malta and Kosovo, to Paraguay, to Panama, and the list goes on. We're very proud to say that G7 economies, many nations across the global South are recognizing that the Special Olympics Global Leadership Coalition for Inclusion is a way to bring forth sport diplomacy at a macro level, but also to ensure its micro application in schoolyards, in community centers, and sports clubs around the world. When we think of Paris being celebrated in the weeks ahead, the global community will come together and cheer athletes in their moments of excellence. There can be no greater sporting event than that which we will witness. And I'm very proud to say that through this panel and through the continued collaboration with very compelling think tanks like that of the Europe-Asia Center, Special Olympics is able and eager to share with the global community that people with intellectual disabilities deserve their right on the playing field, in the arena of sport and in life's arena. There's no better way to do that through the power of sport and bringing people together in all facets of life. And so Special Olympics commends the tremendous work of the center. Special Olympics stands in unity and in solidarity with the global sports community. We too cheer on the athletes that will be competing for the many weeks ahead in Paris. And we ask that the global community look to the athletes of Special Olympics for the best of the Olympic tradition, the best of sport diplomacy, and the best of all of us in our shared human spirit. Matic, to all of you and to the Europe-Asia Center, Special Olympics thanks you for the kind invitation to join this prestigious panel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Evangelista. Dear David, thank you so much. I cannot express strong enough how thankful we are always for a very genuine collaboration that we have in this joint spirit of belief on the significance, and we are really always honored to be able to add a little extra layer of the tremendous work you already do. And thank you so much for this very powerful message of inclusion and the meaning the Olympic movement and Special Olympic movement particularly has for championing, particularly those, as you said, it's not only people with intellectual disabilities, it's refugees, it's global South. It's really the global message of inclusiveness, which is in fact the foundation for any conversation of global sustainable development and climate pursuits. So thank you so much once again. And as we are anticipating the launch of the 2024 Paris Olympics, the Summer Games, we could not be happier to also introduce our next panel. This time, Olympic laureate, a top athlete that has been performing at the top level for 25 years this year, competing on international level, and he will be achieving this during the Summer Olympics in Paris the incredible 5th attendance. Slovenian slalom canoeist Peter Kauzer, who has won his first Olympic medal, silver, in the K1 event during the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games. Peter is otherwise also a winner of 2 canoe slalom world championship, 3 times the winner of World Cup titles. And as we know, you're extremely busy preparing for the very big event, the 5th Games for you. We truly want to thank you once again for taking the time in between the busy days of practicing on the field to join us today and also answer some of the questions. So thank you so much, Peter, and a very warm welcome.
Hey, hello. Thank you for having me. Yeah. It's nice, you know, to get your head a little bit away from training. So yeah, it's really nice, and I'm honored to be on this panel.
Thank you so much. So as an Olympian already joining 4 Olympic Games, from Beijing, which was your first in 2008, then London, where you also were the flag carrier for your motherland, Slovenia, to Rio de Janeiro with the first medal, and then Tokyo, this time 5th Games in Paris. What do Olympic values really mean to you, and how do you reflect on this journey of the 5th Games this year?
Well, we all know the Olympic values, which they are. It's excellence and friendship and respect. And what is good for what it gives me, you know, when there was an article after the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. Everybody was surprised how all the athletes who were fighting for medals at the finish line, we were all giving ourselves, like, each other high fives and hugging and respecting each other. And that's what Olympic movement, Olympic spirit means, you know. We are all the same. We are all fighting for the same goal, trying to do our best, trying to be the best. Sadly, maybe during the years, it's that that quote, you know, it's all about participating, not winning, you know. It's lost in translation a little bit. So that's a little bit sad, because now sadly only medals count. But yeah, at the end, you know, these values it's every 4 year, and every 4 year when you start training and training hard and focusing on the next Olympic Games, you know, you have in mind those values, and yeah, at the end it brings out the best of you.
And obviously, being a very active athlete on international scene since 1999, yeah, how do you really perceive?
It's a long time.
It's quite some time, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you perceive yourself and your role as a sport ambassador? And of course, you're ambassador of sport on one hand, but on the other hand, you know, like in London, you've been carrying the flag. You are the ambassador of your motherland, which would be Slovenia. How does that role, you know, evolve, and how have you grown through that role throughout the years?
Well, when I was young, you know, I was watching all the other good paddlers. I wanted to be like them. I chased my dreams and slowly progressed over the years. But you know, what's interesting, better you get, more experienced you get, more modest you are, you know. You respect each other, all the athletes, and this is what I'm trying to teach also younger kids, because at my age, you know, it's I'm trying to focus a little bit also on the kids, to present them what it is to be an athlete, what are the values, what it brings, that it's not just about winning, you know. And I realized during the career, you know, because when I was young, I always wanted to win every race, even though, like, I knew also the others are training and trying to be the best. And because we are individual sport, you can do what you can do, and then you wait what others do, and if you try to present them that also to the others, it helps. It's hard maybe for them to understand at the beginning, but through the career you get to know what this means, and you just try to put the better version of you. And the sport gave me so much, and I want to give something back to the sport, to the younger generations which are following us.
Very, very beautiful to hear that you're trying to also really pass on such valuable lessons, not only of course the experiences and the skills that you've developed throughout the incredible career trajectory of top athlete. And obviously reflecting on your Olympic experiences so far, which games, let's say, have left the biggest impression on you? I mean, as I said, you've started in Beijing, now Paris is the number 5 already, which it's really an impressive number, particularly for a sport that is so physically demanding. It's not, let's say, some of the other, not to kind of categorize it, but this is really truly a physical body sport.
Yeah, well, it's Beijing was my first Olympic Games, and the Chinese made it like really big, like a really, really big event. You were like a VIP all the way there, and for me it was that wow effect, so strong. And I was really, maybe because it was my first Olympics, but even all the others, Olympics, I can say the way Chinese made it, everything so big, the other Olympic organizing committees, they couldn't do that later on. It was still like, you can see the difference between Olympic Games and I don't know, World Championships or something like that. But yeah, the Beijing Games, for me, it was really like I was still young, and it was crazy to be a part of something big, like the biggest event of sport. And I was really proud of it, to be there on the start line. Also when I was on the start line, like 15,000 people on the grandstands, it was just like a huge wave which pushed you down the course. And then later London Olympic Games came. For me, it was also a special thing, because like you said, like you mentioned it, I was a flag bearer there, and it's a huge honor for me, also for any athlete, to be a flag bearer at the opening ceremony at the Olympic Games. So I was quite nervous there, maybe more nervous than later on the start line, because all eyes from all over the world are, at least for a couple of seconds, are onto you. So yeah, and for sure Rio Olympic Games, result wise, were for me the best. I won my first Olympic, so far, my first and my only so far Olympic medal. And yeah, I'm a little bit sad maybe that later on for Tokyo Olympic Games, it was the pandemic times, so there was no interaction with the fans and everybody, also with the athletes in the village, and we had to be really careful. So yeah, I can't wait this year for Paris Olympic Games, when everything is open. Fans will be on the grandstands at the Olympic Village. Everybody could share their experiences, share their feeling, how they feel. I don't know. I can't wait. Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be great. Yeah.
And it's interesting when you mentioned the part of interaction, the community, the people that were cheering there. So if
Exactly,
you reflect, as a top athlete on this role of sports, and you as athlete in promoting inclusion, and also, let's say, particularly nowadays, the very significant topic of climate action. How do you see, let's say, your role in the future? Like, how do you see your role, as one of the prominent athletes in water sports? How can you contribute to such a mobilizing of communities?
Well, it has become a big issue, you know, all the climate changes. You know, we have, when I was young, you know, you knew when it's winter, it's snowing. When it's autumn, when it's summer, when it's fall, you knew the difference of the time. But now it's like from one extreme to another, and you know, we don't have, like, during winter months we have 15 degrees, then later on when I don't know, in April, May, we have snow in Slovenia when we never had it, you know. And now you can see all around the Europe like big thunderstorms, big yeah, it's crazy how it's going. And if we, as not just as athletes, but as people, if we can contribute something to this, to slow down this climate change, you know, because I don't think we can stop it, but we can slow it down, so our next generations can live normally, without any catastrophic things. Yeah. And also, you know, I always say I do the sport why I do water sport, because for me water is a fountain of life, you know. It's like the source of life for me, and to be in interaction with it, and to respect it, that's what I think we all should do, you know, because I get quite angry during the years. You could see how all the rivers and everything, because of the cleaning stations and everything, the quality got better, but it's a quality. Water is a thing we must cherish and take care of it, and hopefully we will do it later on. And yeah, like I said, we can't stop the climate change, but we can prevent to going from first gear into the fifth, you know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kauzer, for this very personal note, and it's really beautiful to hear specifically the reflection on this note of the environment aspect and respect, as you say. It's, in a way, it's the essence of life, and in respect of it is something
Exactly.
that, as in one of the also Olympic values, but translating it also to the context of nature is a truly, you know, important, a significant, not only important, value to pursue. So thank you so much, Mr. Kauzer, and of course, the best of luck with your 5th games in Paris.
Thank you.
And concluding this panel, I'm truly delighted to introduce Mr. Øyvind Sandbakk as someone who systematically contributes towards the development of scientific understanding of sports performance. Mr. Sandbakk is investigating integrative physiology and biomechanics, the effect of strength and endurance training, as well as the utilization of new technology to gain further understanding of those aspects in real-life environments. He's also serving as the professor of the Department of Neuromedicine and Movement Science, and as the director for Center for Elite Sports Research at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Mr. Sandbakk, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be allowed to speak here and to listen to all the wonderful words that has come up so far. I actually will start in a new role 1st of August. So during the Olympics, I will go from being a professor, director of the Center for Elite Sports Research, to utilizing this knowledge as a new director of at the Norwegian School of Elite Sports, where I'm responsible for all the sports. There's more than 30 sports at the 14 schools that Mr. Inge Andersen talked about yesterday. So he will be our chairman. And for me, it's a pleasure to be allowed to work with the future generation of athletes and to try to implement all the knowledge that we've been working with over so many years. Because for me, it's to say it in brief, sports plays a very crucial role in kids' lives, in youth's lives, and also in as grown-ups and as long as we elderly. I think The main goal should, of course, be to have a lifelong love for sports and physical activity, which we know is important not only for physical health, but also for mental health, and the possibility to be included in a sport community is really a fantastic thing for also for the upcoming generations. I think there we meet across sexes, across cultures, across ethnicities, with and without disabilities. And I'm very proud to be part of the Norwegian sports organization with the value of sport for all that we all share. So this is for me, I think, going into helping the future generation of leaders. We have 450 employees, more than 200 coaches, which is our future leaders in sport, the future athletes, and to see all of them follow their dreams, take out their full potential, is really, really beautiful for me. So what we focus on is the holistic development of humans, so that you should really not only develop physiology and biomechanics, that has been part of my research background, but also mental skills, team building skills, so we do really hope that we not only develop the future stars, that we know that more than half of our Olympic champions comes from our schools, but also future leaders. So we see that many of those who are able to combine elite sports and education are the future leaders of our nation. And I think when we talk about climate and global development, I think this is something we in sports should be very conscious about, that when we develop our athletes, we should not only make them perform well at the competition arena, we should be very careful on how we help them to develop good values, and that we help them to take this with them further, both as future stars, where they can really have a large impact on many people if they're able to communicate all their good values to youth, to the entire nation, and also internationally, but also those who become future leaders, who are really getting in position to take good decisions. And there we see that those who has this possibility to get an education alongside their athletic careers really have a big impact in the future. They are able to bring this attitude, this mindset into business, into politics, and into other important leadership positions where they can really make an impact on our society. So I think that's, for me, a very important role, that we try to develop these future leaders and athletes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sandbach, also for your contribution, and particularly for raising this point a little bit further in terms of the holistic approach and the leadership for life, in a way. And I think Norway, in that respect, is really one of the champions. I mean, as Mr. Andersen mentioned before, just example of Axel Lund Svindal. Yeah, I mean, he's really a leader that is going beyond just the sports field and inspiring, in fact, almost thousands of business leaders on how to pursue kind of the business strategy and tactics. So it's really wonderful to see that also from really the nurturing of future talent, this consciousness and focus on the environment is becoming so well integrated. So thank you so much for your contribution. And on behalf of the Eurasia Center, I really would like to once again thank each and one of you for your time, reflecting on your individual stories of victory, but also of the journeys, and to convey with us this important message that the Olympic movement, in fact, has for the global dialogue, for global constructive participation, and even more importantly, the future prospects into combating the climate change, so towards raising the higher degree of environmental consciousness. So thank you so much